I've been riding the Ninja ZX for RR for the past 2 months now, which means I've had enough time to find all of its little quirks and flaws, but also get a good idea of whether or not it is worth the hype. So in this video, I'm going to give an honest review of the Ninja ZX 4RR, talking about both the good and the bad, telling you if I think it's worth it and who should be buying one. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's start out by answering the question that this video is named after. Is the ZX4RS worth it? And I'd say absolutely. This bike has the perfect mix of performance, handling, looks and price tag to make it well worth the asking price of $8,700. Let's compare that to the other bikes in its class. The Yamaha R7 goes for $9,300. The Honda CBR 650R goes for $9,500, and the Suzuki GSX-S 750 goes for $9,600. Now that you have those numbers in mind, let's take a look at how the Ninja stacks up against them. The ZX4RS has a 401cc parallel twin motor that produces a claimed 49 horsepower and 31.7 pound-feet of torque. That makes it less powerful than all the previously mentioned bikes, but still puts it near the top of the leaderboard. The Yamaha has a 689cc CP2 engine that produces 69 horsepower and 49.5 pound-feet of torque. The Honda has a 649cc liquid-cooled 4-cylinder engine that makes 75 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque, and the Suzuki has a 749cc liquid-cooled 4-cylinder engine that produces 75 horsepower and 51 pound-feet of torque. So as you can see, the Kawasaki isn't anywhere close to the top when it comes to power. But there are two things that you need to keep in mind when looking at these numbers. The first thing is that horsepower isn't everything. If it was, then the fastest production car in the world would be the Bugatti Bolide, which makes a ridiculous 1825 horsepower but only has a 3.7-liter engine. Okay, so what does the Ninja do? Well, for starters, it handles very well. There's a lot of fun to be had when taking this bike through the twisties, and I feel like it's definitely geared towards people who like to ride hard through the corners. While it's not as nimble as the Yamaha R7, it is still pretty light, weighing in at 420 pounds, making it lighter than the Honda and the Suzuki. Power delivery on this bike is very smooth and linear, which I appreciate. You can just get on the throttle steadily and smoothly, and the bike will respond accordingly without any surprises. Another thing I really enjoy about this bike is how great it sounds. It has a nice deep sound to it that reminds me of the old 6. If you want to hear it for yourself, I'll leave a clip of it revving here. But honestly, it sounds good at all RPM ranges and never sounds buzzy or tinny, even at the highest revs. I am running the Aero slip-on exhaust here, which does help with the sound quite a bit. But I think it sounds good, even stock as well. Now let's talk about some of the negative things about this bike. First of all, it has a low seat height of 31.9 inches, which is great for shorter riders like me. However, that also leads to it having a small gas tank that holds only 3.6 gallons of gas. Now keep in mind that this bike isn't really meant for longer trips. Anyways, because of the riding position and the lack of a tall windscreen, but it still sucks to fill up after only going 150 miles or so. Also, the suspension isn't the greatest. It doesn't handle big bumps super well and sometimes can get a little bouncy if you're not careful with the preload. As a result, I've been running my ZX for RS with the stock suspension settings, which honestly aren't too bad, but I would prefer to have more adjustability. A quick and easy solution to this would be to add an aftermarket shock, which I'm probably going to end up doing soon. Another thing I'd like to mention is that this bike tends to run hot, not literally. The temperature gauge hasn't gotten anywhere close to the red line, but the area around the engine and the midpipe gets extremely hot during and after rides. If you accidentally touch the midpipe while walking next to the bike, it will burn your leg pretty badly. I learned that the hard way, so make sure you wear proper gear and be careful when you re-around the bike when it is hot. Also, the instrument cluster isn't the greatest. It's pretty basic and the TFT screen isn't super sharp. On the bright side, it is easy to navigate and get around and has a cool looking tachometer in the middle. Now I want to talk about the brakes for a minute. They aren't the best brakes in the world, but they aren't the worst either. The thing I like the most about them is that the lever has a nice amount of travel before the bite point. I also like that the feel at the lever is very consistent. What I do not like about them is that they require a firm squeeze to get the most stopping power out of them. I guess that's really just a characteristic of hydraulic brakes. Though finally, let's talk about the electronics on this bike. This is where the bike really shines. It has tons of electronics that you usually only see on much more expensive bikes. For example, the traction control works incredibly well, and I've never had any issues with it cutting in unexpectedly, or anything like that. There are 3 modes to choose from, which are Road, Sport, and Off. You can also customize the traction control to your liking by choosing between levels 1 and 3 within each of those modes. Mode 1 being the most aggressive and Mode 3 being the most tame. I leave mine on road mode with level 2 traction control. Throttle response is also adjustable on this bike, just like the traction control. You have 3 modes to choose from, which are natural, sporty, and full. I leave mine on sporty, which gives you a pretty crisp throttle response that's perfect for attacking twisty roads. Quickshifter works well, but I haven't used it too much because I am lazy and I don't want to worry about messing up. Also, the slipper clutch is a really nice addition to this bike. It makes downshifting really smooth and takes away the chances of you accidentally locking up the rear wheel while aggressively downshifting. The last electronic feature I want to mention is the cruise control. Now I know that a lot of people are probably saying themselves, but it's actually really useful on this bike. I took a 9-hour trip on my ZX4 RS recently, and I set the cruise control to 75 miles per hour, and it worked perfectly. I was able to enjoy the ride without having to hold the throttle open, and the bike maintained a perfect speed the entire time. Now let's talk about who I think this bike is for. I think this bike is for people who want a bike with a bit more pep than the Ninja 400, but are you ready to jump up to something with much more power like the ZX6R? I also think this bike is for people who enjoy riding on twisty roads and don't want to sacrifice too much comfort while doing it. Finally, I think this bike is for people who want a bike that stands out and looks really good while doing it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Also, let me know in the comments what you think of the Ninja ZX4 RS, and if you have any questions about it. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.